Second explanation, the Bible never says that God created only Adam and Eve. It's possible that God created other human life as well.
And here's the problem with fairy tale. Here's the problem with the Bible. You can make up whatever the heck you want to. Though I don't think there's really any way you can back up what you just said in the Bible. I don't think there's a way to even show that that is possible. Because if God made another human, that means they're back to the state before Adam and Eve ate of the fruit. And if they're back to that state, I mean, it could technically take out Adam and Eve and let those people be back into the Garden of Eden. Like, they will be back into the Garden of Eden, the original state. So it doesn't make sense what he's saying. None of it makes sense. Hello and welcome to Black Bear Atheist. Bible stories don't make any sense. But if you tell this to a Christian, they have a load of excuses to tell you, oh, you're not looking at the context. Oh, you need the Holy Ghost to explain it to you. You need this, you need that. No, you just don't get it. Just because you don't get it doesn't mean it doesn't make any sense. A lot of excuses. Today we're checking out the story of Cain and Abel, and you can see for yourself how stupid these stories really are. We're going to the channel Bible in a nutshell, and then we're gonna have Cliff tell us how Cain found his wife and how that makes any sense.
In the first book of the Bible, there's a story about two brothers, Cain and Abel. They were the sons of Adam and Eve, the very first people. Cain, the older brother, was a farmer who grew crops, while Abel, the younger one, was a shepherd who took care of sheep. One day, both Cain and Abel decided to give gifts to God. Abel gave the best part of his sheep, and God was really happy with his gift. But Cain just gave some of his fruits, not the best ones, and God wasn't as pleased with his gift. Cain
Now, this might be like a minor detail, but were they not giving gifts to God before? Was this like just a one day they just decide to do this? It's quite interesting how this story wasn't even given a chapter, and it's the first murder in human history, technically. And it wasn't even given a full chapter, it was just given a few verses just to skim over the story because why the heck not?
got really upset and jealous because God liked Abel's gift more. God saw that Cain was angry and tried to talk to him. God told Cain that if he did good things, he would be happy, but if he did bad things, then bad things would want to follow him. But Cain
I don't think that's what God told him. If I'm not wrong about this, God was talking to him about how sin is near at his door and he should, be wary in a sense. Let me read you the verse. Chapter 4 of Genesis, verse 5. But he did not respect Cain and his offering, and Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So the Lord said to Cain, why are you so angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door, and its desires for you, and you should rule over it. That's what God told him. Not, oh, don't be jealous, blah, 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 love story. It says sin lies in your door, and you should rule over the sin. But I guess that's an explanation for him to know exactly what to do. Because again, God is not a God of confusion, and He gave quite detailed way that Cain could have, ruled over sin.
couldn't stop feeling jealous of Abel. One day, when they were out in a field, Cain's anger got out of control. He took a rock and threw it at Abel. It hit so hard that Abel died from the impact. When God asked Cain where Abel was, Cain said,
I don't know. Am I supposed to look after my brother all the time?
That's not what He said. He said, am I my brother's keeper? But okay.
but God knew what had happened. God told Cain that because he had killed his brother, life would be really hard for him from now on.
Their life was already hard. Remember that God cursed them to begin with? Adam and Eve were cursed, and the curse was passed down to Cain and Abel. So their life is already hard. So just, I mean, is it gonna make it harder? Okay. bring in the worst. And also, why would you ask him where his brother is when you know his brother is dead? Just to proceed to tell him you know that his brother is dead, and here's your punishment. I'm gonna curse you. Weird story, huh?
He wouldn't be able to grow crops anymore, and he would have to move away and live in a different place. Cain expressed his concern that his punishment was too great to bear, and that others might kill him for his deed.
Why would others kill you for the deed? Like, how would they know? That aside, which others? Which flicking others? At this point, according to the Bible, there should be four people: Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. Now, Cain is dead. I mean, Abel is dead. So there should be three people. So, which others are going to haunt him? Now, this is supposed to be an account for inspired by God, and we're missing quite a few details in this story that's supposed to tell us the first murder, which is technically the second sin, if you can call it that. And we don't even know anything about the story. It's just blankly moving on, and it's so stupid. Like, this is so unrealistic.
In response, God put a mark on Cain to protect him, so that no one who found him would harm him. Cain left and lived in a place
More like another curse.
called Nod, which was far away from his family. He had to leave because of the bad thing he did to his brother. The story of Cain and Abel teaches us a lot. It shows how being jealous and angry can lead to doing really hurtful things. It's a reminder that we should try to do our best and be happy for others, and not let bad feelings like jealousy take over. The story also shows that even when people do bad things, God still cares about them and wants to keep them safe.
The Bible never specifies what happened to Cain, so he probably is in hell because it never shows that Cain asked for forgiveness from God. So it doesn't matter whether God give him a curse so nobody kills him, so he could die at whatever time. At the end of the day, he's gonna end up in a place where he's gonna be punished for eternity. This is according, obviously, to the New Testament idea, and we are to believe orders are mixed together. And you see how dumb this story actually is. There's just a few verses in chapter 4 of Genesis talking about this story. And you would think this story is quite important to show us, I guess, literally the first murder in human history. Wouldn't this be a good time for God to, give it the Ten Commandments? Wouldn't this could be a good time to start the foundation of his moral laws? But no, he waits few thousand years. That aside, the story itself doesn't make sense. Cain would not just kill Abel because he's jealous God accepts his offering, when he could prepare just another better offering to give to God. Like, nothing about this story make any logical sense. But we're gonna hear Cliff, I don't know, I guess, give an answer to why Cain had a wife. So after Cain left, he apparently knew his wife. This is said in chapter 4, verse 17 of Genesis. He knew his wife. Which wife? Who? Because the Bible didn't say Adam and Eve actually had another child. So
Where does Cain's wife come from?
Where does Cain's wife come from?
Yeah, did God just happen to throw another person for Cain to marry? It doesn't say anything about it in the Bible. It just kind of appeared.
All right, what difference in your life today is it going to make whether I can answer your question where Cain's wife came
It
from?
shows that the Bible is not 100% true. Why aren't the dinosaurs mentioned in the Bible?
Okay, that's the same line of thinking. Keep it on. Man, there's no book anywhere in the world that gives us every detail. There's no history book of U.S. history that gives us every detail of U.S. history. There's no biology textbook that gives you every detail of biology. But you have the arrogance to sit there and say, because the Bible doesn't answer the question where Cain got his wife from, it shows the Bible's unreliable. That is so dishonest intellectually, that's scary. And yet that type
I agree. There's no textbook that probably gives every single detail about a specific topic. But we're not talking about any textbook here. We're talking about the Bible. The account from a divine being. It's not like he actually has limited words. He could have just write more than he had, because apparently he protects his word. This is what Christians believe, that God does protect his word from when someone wrote it down. So it wasn't like he had limited words. He could have expressed himself in however he wants to. This is how the divine being that created the entire universe, again, I'm going into the fairy tale land here, that created the entire universe, sees that it should write this story. The first murderer sees that it should depict this Cain and Abel story. Now give us a background to where the fuck the wife is coming from. Now, is this really important? In the aspect of the story to show how reliable the story actually is, even if this is real, which it's not, there's no evidence of this. Yes, it's important. It's like the Noah story. Where did the fish go? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's important to actually account for the story and see if it's actually reliable, which is not. But I guess Ask Cliff, which he names his entire channel, asks me a question, go to universities so students can ask him questions, is getting mad at a question being asked. Interesting, isn't it? Is it because he doesn't actually have an answer? Is it because the Bible clearly doesn't make any sense and the story itself doesn't make any sense? I think so.
Type of thinking is tolerated on a university campus. That's embarrassing, man.
Bible's just a book.
Embarrassing to ask interesting question about a book that's clearly just telling stories that are fairy tale. Clearly fairy tale. There's a details in it that you can clearly see doesn't make any, it doesn't add up. It's same as any one of them, like, or the Joseph story, or the Moses going getting out of Egypt, or that story, which we have no actual account or evidence, concrete evidence to conclude those stories actually happen. You could see the details in the stories and see that they just literally made up.
To read. It's literature.
Embarrassing.
The Bible is literature. It's a book of history.
Yeah, and there's no book that includes every detail of the particular issue the book is dealing with. For you to have the audacity to sit there and say the Bible's incorrect because it doesn't tell me where Cain got his wife is such convoluted, illogical, irrational thinking. It's embarrassing, man.
I mean, getting mad at a question is quite interesting. Thank you, Cliff, for showing us how ignorant you literally are. The question is interesting. I don't find it interesting enough to be asking a question. The question I would ask for people who believe in the flood is where what really happened to the fish. If they can give an explanation for that, I'll be like interested in finding out what their answer is. That intrigues me. That's a question that I've had for like years and never got an answer. Anyways, the question is interesting. He just put it there. Cain knew his wife. Which flicking wife? It doesn't make any sense. The story doesn't add up. None of it add up. God could have extended the verses to tell us more detail. He could have done whatever he wants to do. But no, he gave us this detail, this little information. And is that to be expected from a divine being who knows all things? Is that really to be expected from the one that created the entire universe to just give us literally almost no detail about what really happened? Or is this just man made, which would explain why there's literally, I don't know, nothing for us to even look at? Now, Cliff is gonna give us an explanation again of what he thinks of where he thinks Ken's wife actually came from.
Now, what are some possible explanations for where Cain got his wife? Well, it's obvious that possibly Cain married one of his sisters. Let me give you some.
And that's really not possible. I guess let's read chapter 4, verse 1. Now Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have acquired a man from the Lord. Then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. Now was a keeper of shepherds, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. None of that shows that they actually had another child. If you go to chapter 5, it gave a genealogy, in a sense. And then in chapter 5, verse 3, it shows back of how Adam and Eve, even after they already had Cain and Abel, is showing their genealogy from here. And it says Adam lived 130 years and then begot a son of his likeness, blah, blah, blah. And he names him Seth. That's chapter 5, verse 3. None of this shows that there was any sister. So his third son technically would be his third child that he actually gave birth to, technically would be Seth. So that's not really an explanation. Let's hear the second one.
Second explanation. The Bible never says that God created only Adam and Eve. It's possible that God created other human life as well. And so Cain would have married.
And here's the problem with fairy tale. Here's the problem with the Bible. You can make up whatever the heck you want to. Though I don't think there's really any way you can back up what you just said in the Bible. I don't think there's a way to even show that that is possible. Because if God made another human, that means they're back to the state before Adam and Eve ate of the fruit. And if they're back to that state, I mean, it could technically take out Adam and Eve and let those people be back into the Garden of Eden. Like, they will be back into the Garden of Eden, the original state. So it doesn't make sense what he's saying. None of it makes sense. I mean, the entire point of Jesus coming is to help humans from their sin. So if God could just create another human, literally another people, then he didn't need Jesus. He didn't need Adam and Eve, and he could have taken out Cain, Abel, Adam and Eve, and then reinstate those people. Which honestly, he might as well have, because what do we have in the future? Noah's flood. What's the point of just leaving eight people when you can take them all out and make them again? So I don't think Cliff wants to go down that route. I
So
mean,
Cain
even
would
in
have married.
chapter 5, it says, this is the book of genealogy of Adam. In the days of God created man, he made him in his likeness of God, and then he created them male and female, and blessed them and called them mankind in the days they were created. This is chapter 5 in the creation story. It depicts just Adam and Eve. If you want to say that's a metaphor for everyone, I mean, just go straight ahead. This is to the progressive Christians. If you want to call the Cain and Abel's story a metaphor, again, go straight ahead. I generally don't care. It really does just depict how dumb all these stories are. If this is fairy tales, if this are all just metaphors for how sin came to be, the effect of sin. Now, if this is metaphor, then none of it really makes sense. That means humans are literally just made with the nature to sin. I mean, either ways, we're made with nature to sin. This is part of our design from our amazing designer. And if it's a metaphor, it really a metaphor of what exactly? A metaphor of how sin came to be, but how would that make any sense with the entire storyline? How would that lead to Jesus? Why would Jesus need to come if this is all just a metaphor to show how flawed humans are? Doesn't God already know that? Didn't he literally design us to be like that? But let's have Cliff rant a little bit more.
Marry a daughter of somebody else. Those are two options. I don't know which one's right, but guess what? It really doesn't matter a hill of beans to your life today where Cain got his wife.
Neither does.
Stop.
Yeah, sure, it doesn't hurt me today. Really, none of the stories actually affect me at all today. To an extent, obviously. Indirectly, people believe in this shit and they're part of the people that make laws. They're part of the people that affect laws that are being passed. So indirectly, this shit does affect me. But directly, it doesn't really affect my life. Actually, indirectly, directly, you can consider that to be any of it. Beside the point, it doesn't affect really any one of us. These are just stories. Just some people just believe strongly in it and think it's actually true, and are willing to go as far as like Cliff and say I have like act like they actually have answer or no shit when they don't. And when they can't answer something, they just go ahead and start screaming like a bozo.
Games. Oh no. If Jesus spoke the truth, what he said is highly relevant to your life today and to my.
Wrong. It's not highly relevant. It's not relevant at all. You know why? Because even if what he's saying is true, I could just at my last moment ask for forgiveness. And two, even if what he's saying is actually true, forgetting or asking for forgiveness at my last moment, it doesn't matter whether I ask for forgiveness or not. If God did not choose to, I don't know, have me in heaven, then I wouldn't be there. If He didn't design it from the beginning, then I won't be in heaven. That's how that works. He already designed, He already knew everything that's gonna come to be, and He made it that way. So it's not like you have a free will to choose to go to heaven or hell to begin with. So even if Jesus came and everything He did was true, it wouldn't affect any one of our life because we're not the one choosing who is going to heaven or not. So back to square one. Bullshit.
My life. Yes, it is.
I can do anything in my life, and God does not play any role in it. I have my own decisions, my own. I mean, if I decide to go out and shoot someone, I'm gonna go out and decide to shoot someone. God doesn't tell me to shoot someone. I'm coming to school here. Does God?
Yeah, that's right. And if you go out and murder people, on the day of judgment, God's going to hold you responsible for that, for murdering people. You're right, you're free today. God's giving you a free will, and you can go out and blow people away. And you might even evade the police if you're tricky enough and smart enough, but there's coming a day of judgment, you will stand before an all-knowing, all-powerful God, and He will hold you responsible for blowing people away.
At the end of the day, that's where they hide. That's where they try to, convince you to convert to Christianity today because you don't know whether you're gonna actually live to that day where when you die and you're facing judgment day and God is there judging you. Because they could technically prove that there's an afterlife to begin with. And this is not just a claim or a fairy tale, part of a book that literally doesn't make any sense. Now, Cain's story of his wife and killing his brother shows us how really unreliable the story is. The story seems to follow a storyline in which it quickly moves from the creation story, man falling, Cain killing his brother, and then quickly to Abraham in 12 fucking chapters. That is quite quick. I mean, if a divine God is trying to communicate with all human being and all mankind with a book, a collection of books, would he really not give details of how he created the entire universe? Why would he only have two chapters dedicated to the creation story? Actually, just one really, or maybe half of a chapter, because obviously he did it in 7 days, 6 days, and then he'll rest on the seventh day because it's so great. Why would God not give details account of really what he did? Now to those Christians who are like, oh, were you to question God, blah blah blah. I'm just pointing out the things in the story that doesn't make any sense and doesn't add up. The story doesn't make any sense. And that shows how unreliable it actually is. If you take any of the stories, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, the Abraham story of how he just was about to sacrifice his son, a fucking maniac. Any other stories, just keep on going. There's no evidence for any of them. These are just stories, even literally made up. And without even doing really research or finding out whether these stories are true, you could tell for yourself that these stories don't make any sense. And then when you find out that, I don't know, there's no actual conclusive evidence that Moses, took the people of Israelites out of Egypt, another blah 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 story, you see how foolish, I mean, you see how stupid the entire thing adds up to be. This is just a political propaganda. That's the only way you can literally explain how you will move through a creation story in one chapter, move to man fallen in three chapters, and then move to genealogy, Noah's story, and then boom, we are at Abraham, the Jewish tribe. It's the only explanation. I mean, if you look at the story yourself, you could see this is just a political propaganda. But here we are. We are to believe the divine being inspired this entire thing. Not man made, a divine being. That's all I have for you today. I'm done ranting. Thank you all for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. And have a great day, people.